the trick is to bounce it off the other one. So it won't go, but
you've played this more than once before, I can tell.
I mean, I know how to play it. It's there, right? So it's. I gave you a point.
Thank you very much. It's all about sharing.
It's about sharing.
It's the net sharing economy.
Speaking of net sharing, net zero.
Mm-hmm.
You want to tell people what it is really about and what it is in a nutshell? What's net zero?
Net zero in a nutshell.
What's a net zero economy? What do you see as a net zero economy?
So I guess the headline for net zero is all organizations and all people, every entity of the economy realizing that they have an impact on climate change. So every one of those entities and people and companies has a footprint or carbon footprint, we call it that. So the idea is to balance that with almost.
It got here. That's what's up.
So it's about balancing all the impacts that we have as individuals and people, communities and businesses,
right,
with projects and activities that can reduce those impacts.
What are you playing? What are you trying to hit?
That one, yeah. I'm going to hit on the edge and get it in.
Okay.
I'm going to go for it.
Right.
So that's net zero. So it's the balance of all the impacts that businesses in the economy have and the reduction to zero through projects and programs that reduce emissions. You missed it.
I'm trying to. So essentially, when you say impacts, what kind of impacts do you really talk about?
So for each company, it's slightly different depending on what their business model is. But there's a few basic impacts that we're looking at. That's a real hard one to get in. Yeah, I'll go for that one. I'm going to miss it though, but we'll try.
Fine.
So generally speaking, we think about carbon footprint. What we're looking at are the main emission sources for that company. So for most companies, it's energy consumption. So that could be natural gas or electricity that they consume. It could also be the fuel in their vehicles if they have a vehicle fleet. But it's also things outside of their business operation. So it's looking at business travel, so their choice of airlines, their choice of taxi company, their choice of paper company, what they buy and procure. It could be the waste they generate. So it's a whole number of things. So that's the footprint of a company.
Sure.
But net zero goes beyond the operations. That was a way wild one. Beyond just the operations. And so what we did is we looked at some of the other impacts that companies have. And we consider those in our imprinting net zero model, which I'll talk about in a second, to be footprint. And then upstream is your tail print. So if you imagine you're a dinosaur and your supply chain is your tail,
right,
you have those impacts. And then handprint, so it's what you do as a company, the way your products and services impact.
So essentially, I mean, what you're saying is let's say your footprint is essentially the carbon footprint of your day-to-day operations.
Yep.
You look at your energy sources, your fuel, the vehicles, and so on.
Yep, exactly.
Your tail print is what you do with your supply chain.
Yep.
Let me just clean this up for you. And your handprint is essentially what you do downstream, right?
That's exactly right. Yeah, upstream and downstream.
Upstream and downstream. So, I mean, when you look at this place, this is, we're at Hatch right now.
Yep.
Playing really bad Carol. Essentially, the model that this is being set up on is a really cool way to minimize your initial footprint, which is your actual footprint. You're sharing spaces. You're minimizing your energy component. You don't have a dedicated boardroom. You just take one as you need it.
Yep.
So forth. And this is becoming a hub for entrepreneurship. How do you see entrepreneurs being able to actively take some measures to do this beyond being here?
Yeah, just to pick up on the shared working space. I mean, here's the interesting dichotomy in climate and business. So when you reduce your environmental impact, more often you reduce your cost.
Right.
So for a lot of companies who are office-based, they are often tied into long-term leases in buildings they have no control over. Right. So they're kind of locked in to having a high impact. So having flexible workspace actually allows them to work in a more efficient building, more effectively with their employees and collaborate, reducing their footprint. But the role for companies in these types of communities is innovation. And so we really need innovation across all levels of business to be able to reach the net zero economy. And this isn't just about companies themselves providing solutions. So it's not just about really smart startups with energy solutions or really smart startups with product-based solutions. It's about innovation within companies to think differently about their products and services. So startups can often actually challenge. I'm terrible at this game.
Yeah, it is.
Existing.
Hang on. Right.
Well, if I go for that one, it's easy.
No. Try this first.
It's not always about going for the easy choice.
You haven't
have
made
to set
one
your
yet.
ambition high.
Try it. All right.
That's my net zero one.
Okay, fine.
This is my footprint.
All right.
So yeah, so they can challenge big companies. So what you find is really disruptive startups coming up with ideas, products and solutions and whatever, just to challenge the way that businesses think. And also, I was really close. Young people, millennials, and the generation after that, born in the 90s, they don't want to work in static companies, in really static businesses that don't have a purpose or don't have a vision. So really cool startups and innovation in that broader sense is attracting young people into companies that want to make a difference. And that is a really big factor of this. I'm going to get one eventually.
Tom, can you tell me a little bit about how the thinking around net zero evolved, and what is net zero exactly in terms of how do you make it happen? Why is it important, and why are we talking to businesses about it now, and you as a company especially?
Sure. So as a company, for over 20 years, we've been helping businesses reduce their carbon footprints. So we're considered the leader in that space. In the global context of climate change, there's been negotiations between countries, nation states, above the level of companies. And so in 2015, in Paris, when there was the big climate change convention, government celebrated creating the Paris Agreement, which was how, as a world, we can move towards achieving a net zero economy, essentially reducing the worst impacts of climate change. And at that time, they called on businesses to be involved, to be part of the movement forward, because it had only been governments really before playing a key role. And so at that time, the concept of net zero was created, which, as I mentioned earlier, was the balance between all the impacts that the world produces from a carbon perspective, reduction down using sources of emission reduction and sequestration of carbon. So it's a balance in between human-induced climate change emissions and those that are reduced. So 2015, everybody was excited, the Paris Agreement was signed, and businesses started to get involved. And then 2 years later, at the Climate Change Conference in Bonn, which was hosted by Fiji, they wanted to put on a particular Fijian cultural slant on climate change negotiations and wanted to involve businesses formally and informally in that process. So in Fijian culture, they have something called a talanoa, and it's where people in a community get together to solve a particular problem. And it's people from all different backgrounds, the elders, the young people, poor people.
Like a round table around a campfire.
Exactly. Just imagine everyone sitting in a circle and everybody's equal. And they try and solve that problem through open questions. So they want to bring that concept into climate change and invite businesses to take part in talanoas. And they created a program called the Talanoa Dialogue, which was about involving businesses and other stakeholders, anybody, into that process. So as leaders in that space, we took it upon ourselves to support that initiative and to get views from organisations that we work with and others. So last year in 2018, we invited 61 different global businesses around the world into 7 different events that were hosted in North America and Europe to get their views as businesses on achieving a net zero economy. And those businesses came from every sector you can imagine. And the people in that room came from every different division within a business you can imagine. And so,
can you tell us some of the people who were involved? The companies, the brands?
So the companies that were involved were guys like, for the finance sector, ING and Nordea Bank, HSBC as well. From an energy sector, we had SSE, big UK and Irish, big European energy provider, BP as well, BP Target Neutral involved. Fertilizer company like Yara,
so big
PwC.
PwC, right? Okay.
So everyone you can imagine, just big brands for all different sectors. So we took part at the Talanoa. We got them all around a table together. Everybody was equal. We asked 3 questions. We said, "Where are we now? So what's the current status of climate change? What's the status of it within your company? What are your company views? Where are we going? So do we need to achieve a net zero economy? What does it mean for your business? Do we need to do it by a certain time? Do we need to do it sooner?
Right.
What does it look like? And then the third question was, how do we get there? So what do we need to do as businesses, as individuals, as the economy to move forward? So that was all distilled into a final report that we submitted to the UNFCCC. And from all of that analysis, we came out with some pretty incredible insight, and it was that these organizations don't consider their impacts just within a footprint,
Sure.
just within their direct impacts. They go way beyond, and there are 7 prints that we managed to identify. So it starts off with your tail print, so everything in your supply chain. Moving along is your footprint, things in your operations.
Right.
Going along further is your handprint, and then there are 4 other prints related to how you can go beyond neutral, or how you can increase business value.
So sorry, I mean that's what we were talking about before. The footprint, the handprint, those are kind of traditionally seen as part of your business operations. But can you tell us a little bit about the other 4, the mind print and
the brain print?
The brain print.
So the 4 of the prints are the brain print.
Yep.
So the brain print is about being able to harness the collective power and intelligence and ideas and innovation of all of the employees in your business.
Okay.
So we found in our work, both on the talent areas but also with clients for the last 20 years, is when you make a commitment, like becoming carbon neutral and submitting to net zero, you find that people within the organization understand that. They get where you're going, and people come forward with ideas to help you achieve that. So often it's people that you wouldn't expect. So
Right.
It could be people like cleaners,
Yeah.
who walk around your office every evening and notice that you leave all of the lights on.
Okay.
It could be a waste management guy, notice all the waste.
So it's like a enhanced employee engagement.
It's beyond that.
Yeah, that's
it's
just
beyond that.
far
It's
beyond.
employee engagement is another print. That's the fingerprint.
Oh, right,
This is
okay.
about knowing that in your business, all of those people have their own brains, and if you harness all of those brains,
Okay.
you can create something really powerful. So for different companies like professional services companies, they have a whole company of consultants,
Right.
of people with incredible intelligence, so you can really harness that. So brain print is the
Is that-
influence of your capability. Now, next one linked to that is fingerprint.
Okay.
So this is your employees.
Okay.
So as an organization, you have all of those employees, and they have their own personal footprint, their own personal tailprint, their own personal handprint, their own lives where they're having an impact. So what you can do as a company is influence them, help them shift their lives to a more sustainable path, lower their carbon emissions, be activists within their communities to help reduce their impact.
Sure.
So as a brand, you have that potential opportunity to influence your employees and enhance your fingerprint.
Can you give us an example of maybe a company that has done something like that?
Yeah, so fingerprint is, sure. So one of our large professional services companies, a law firm, for them, their climate program, their net zero program, was about retaining talent and acquiring talent within the company.
Right.
It's a very competitive sector. A lot of people are trying to get the best lawyers to work for them, very similar to any professional services. So their program as a company was about inspiring their employees to show them that the law firm was a great place to work, that they were a purpose-led organization. And so they're influencing their employees. And then what they also did is provided their employees with access to a tool where they could calculate their own personal emissions, their own family's emissions, and then also offset that to be a carbon neutral employee, a carbon neutral person, or a carbon neutral family. So those fingerprints actions enable that. And you see that across sustainability, very broadly in loads of different areas. The next print, kind of linked to that slightly, and the brain print, is about having a credible plan. So having a blueprint to deliver this. So businesses are experts in creating plans.
Right.
They are doing it for their strategy. They're doing it for their sales. They're doing it for the marketing. So blueprint is about creating a credible net zero plan for your company that can deliver business value. And businesses are great at doing that. They go way beyond the terms that you see in politics, which is the electoral cycle.
Sure.
They can plan for 20 years if they
Sure,
want to.
yeah.
So we have some clients that have a blueprint for their net zero program that is over 10 years long, which includes that particular law firm. It also includes a really innovative tea and coffee company called Taylors of Harrogate and a range of others.
Okay, and finally,
the final one in that is newsprint.
Yeah.
So this is about how you convert all of those actions, all of those impacts, and all of those outcomes into something that creates brand value. And so that's considered the newsprint, which is a categorization, I guess, of the engagement power of your program.
Sure.
So how do you become an advocate of climate action? How do you become an ambassador for your sector, an ambassador for your country as a brand to try and influence others to decarbonize and to achieve net zero emissions? So newsprint is that conversion to value as a company, so you get brand value.
So, I'd like to talk to you a little bit more about the kind of projects that would help do this. But I think we should see a little bit more of hats right now. So let's take a little walk. Yeah. All right. It's a pretty decent coffee, actually.
It's good. I wouldn't say it's the best coffee ever.
It's okay. We're
the second best, because the best was in your house.
The best was in my house. Yeah. All right. So I think where we stopped was we were talking about the kind of projects that companies can do to add on to this net zero concept, or to help them offset their impact. Can you tell us a little bit about the kind of projects that some of the companies have done to help them do that?
Yeah, sure. So I guess net zero is everything, right?
Right.
Encompassing all of your impacts and being responsible for that,
right.
Recognizing it and being responsible. So I guess you can break that out into 3 broad categories of the type of program companies would have. So the first one is actually understanding your impact.
Right.
Yeah, it's critical that you know what your carbon footprint is of your business and then of your wider print, your tail,
Sure.
in your footprint. So get to know the data. That's the first thing. And within getting to know the data, what you're then able to do is identify where you have spikes in impact, so where you have high carbon emissions, and you can identify efficiency activities. So it's data and then being more efficient, being smarter, optimizing, shifting to LED lighting, for example. Simple things. So get your footprint, get your data, and you can identify a whole host of efficiency savings for carbon and then for cost. The next level up from that is then securing and consuming renewable energy. So this is what, over the last 4 years, I would say, this is where a lot of the big global brands have started to play and started to make commitments. Having first of all, net zero energy consumption, procuring 100% renewable electricity. So a lot of the big companies you see out there, Microsoft, ING, like I mentioned, H&M, Marks and Spencer's, it actually is literally anyone you can imagine that is proactive in this space, has a commitment to 100% renewable energy. So that's it. Know your data, be more efficient, consume 100% renewable energy. But ultimately, as a business, you're always going to have unavoidable impacts, unavoidable carbon emissions. So area 3 is then using mechanisms like carbon offsetting, carbon credits. So how you've got to think about carbon offsets is it's an outsourcing of an activity. So as a business, companies are used to outsourcing certain services to other providers that are more efficient and can deliver that service more cost effectively. So just the same way, let's say some European companies are outsourcing their customer services or their data services to companies in the region because it's more efficient and it's more effective. Those companies can also then outsource the emission reduction, pay somebody else to deliver their emission reduction for them because they may not be able to do that within their own responsibility, their own boundaries of impact, or it may be too expensive. So carbon offsetting is a really great lever to reduce the residual footprint that companies have. And within carbon offsetting, you have a whole range of different projects and programs that you can select. So you can look at supporting the transition to renewables within the country or market you're operating in. You can support the protection or restoration of forest ecosystems. You can support households in shifting to renewable energy, off-grid solar power, or you can provide communities with access to clean drinking water. There's really a whole host of different projects and activities that deliver emission reductions.
Tom, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us. Thanks for coming all the way to Sri Lanka and spending the time here. We hope to see you again soon.
Absolutely.
Wow. Thank you.